You know about coronary circulation. You have these arteries, and there are also veins on the surface of the heart that are there to supply oxygenated blood to the cardiac muscle. You also know how important it is to get plenty of oxygen to the heart because the heart cannot tolerate ischemia. So you have this system of these coronary arteries that branch off here from the base of the aorta to take oxygenated blood to the cardiac muscle. This is a great system and it usually works just fine. But there is what you could kind of think of as a design flaw in here. You also know about the valves. You have valves controlling the flow of blood. Where the aorta attaches to the left ventricle, you have the aortic semilunar valve. So this is in the base of the aorta. Every time the ventricle pumps, this valve opens. So this picture shows it open. These flaps here are the flaps of the valve. And you can see it's open and blood is flowing through into the aorta. This is what happens when the ventricle contracts. And contraction is systole. So we'll go ahead and put ventricular systole. So the aortic semilunar valve is open during ventricular systole. In the next picture, you can see it's closed. So here's the valve. It's these white flaps, and it's closed. That way blood doesn't flow from the aorta back into the ventricle. So it is closed during ventricular diastole. Diastole means relaxed. So when the ventricle is relaxed, it's not contracted, that's when this valve is closed. Now look at the direction the valve opens. It opens upward. Remember, these coronary arteries are coming out of the base of the aorta. So when it opens, right here are where those coronary arteries come out. The flaps of the valve block those coronary arteries. And when it's closed, those coronary arteries would be here like this. Blood is free to flow into the coronary arteries. So when it's open, it blocks the coronary arteries. And when it's closed, blood flows into the coronary arteries. So what this means is that every time your ventricle contracts, that aortic semilunar valve opens. And when it opens, it blocks the coronary arteries. And if those arteries are blocked, you are not sending oxygenated blood to your cardiac muscle. So you have an interruption in the flow of oxygenated blood to your cardiac muscle. So you can actually have a heart attack if your heart beats too fast. Every time your heart beats, you block this. So let's say the average adult resting heart rate, 75 beats per minute. This means that in 60 seconds and 1 minute, you interrupt the blood flow 75 times. Now, you can live with this. You have the myoglobin, your body's adapted, you can handle this. But there is a maximum. You may have heard of the 220 rule. It's just a general rule of thumb, right? So it's not an absolute number. It's not like if you go over this number, you're going to instantly fall over dead. But in general, just to give you a rough idea, your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. So if you are 20 years old, you could safely get your heart rate up to 200 beats per minute. Right? And the older you get, the less of the heart rate you can handle. There's an interesting phenomenon that goes along with this called the mammalian diving reflex. And this is found in all mammals. And remember from chapter 13, learning cranial nerves, you have the trigeminal nerve. This nerve is in your face, and it senses temperature of your face. It responds to cold water touching your face. So if cold water touches your face, your trigeminal nerve will send a signal to the medulla oblongata. And your medulla oblongata will then send a signal through the vagus nerve, hopefully you remember this one from chapter 13 also, to secrete acetylcholine onto your heart. And this will cause your heart to slow down. So there's this show, Man vs. Wild, with Bear Grylls. He's a survival expert, and he goes around teaching you how to survive in different situations. He did an episode where he discusses this mammalian diving reflex. So we'll watch what goes on with Bear here.
Okay. Heart rate, but also my breathing rate.
It's all linked up to a laptop, so the team can monitor me in real time.
And I've got a thermal imager camera showing my skin temperature. Okay, let's get into this.
My skin temperature's currently 88 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about to fall dramatically. I've got to swim over 80 feet. Half of that is under solid ice.
Okay, let's go for this. It's much harder than normal. Whenever I've done this before, it's been part of a journey. You come across a river, you just get on and do it. This is much more premeditated. I find that harder. Okay, first you've got to do is fight that sense of panic that's very natural when you're in freezing cold water like this. And instantly I feel my heart rate just goes straight through the roof. And the danger of that is cardiac arrest.
So let's talk for a minute about what he just said. He said, fight that sense of panic. So as soon as you jump into cold water, that gives you a fight or flight. He is having a sympathetic response here. His blood is full of norepinephrine. He is dumping massive amounts of norepinephrine onto his heart, and his heart rate is increasing. And he just said the danger of that is cardiac arrest. Well, cardiac arrest is another way of saying heart attack. So he's saying he's panicking, which is making his heart rate go up, and that increased heart rate means that every time that ventricle contracts, he's blocking the blood flow into his coronary arteries, and he could actually exceed that maximum safe heart rate and not get enough oxygenated blood to his heart and have cardiac arrest as a result of his heart beating too fast.
You gotta try and slow it. Slow it and keep that panic away. Okay, under the ice. The danger of me here, guys, is not getting the line right. You know, if I start heading offline, you gotta keep eyes on me, okay? We got no safety liner here. You need to get it straight.
Survival is all about understanding and controlling your reflexes. Watch as my heart rate drops from 160 beats per minute to 55. It's known as a mammalian dive reflex. When your face is submerged in cold water, the heart slows dramatically. It gives you vital extra seconds to make it to the surface.
All right, so as soon as he put his face in the water, his heart rate dropped from 160 to 55. That is a very rapid and huge decrease, and that is the mammalian diving reflex. Every mammal will do this. You put cold water on your face, it slows your heart rate down.